All right, today we're with Larry, and he has some word from the trail to share with us.
In 1966, I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, going through basic training. One night, I wasn't feeling well and finally realized I couldn't breathe laying down. I slept that night setting up and went to sick call the next morning. They examined me and rushed me to the hospital. I had pneumonia. A week later, they discharged me, and I was back in basic training. 2 days later, I was sleeping, setting up again, back in the hospital for pneumonia. They called my wife and suggested she come down to be with me. I survived and went back to basic training. Let's skip ahead about 40 years, 40 wonderful years with my wife and best friend Janet. During that 40 plus years, we had 3 fantastic children, Christy, David, and Greg. There are 6 grandchildren, Shelby, Haley, Lucas, David, Lauren, and Tyler. But in 1994, I had a cancerous kidney removed. The cancer had reached my renal artery and metastasized. They said I would live 3 to 5 years. 13 years later, in October 2007, the renal cell carcinoma returned. I had a tumor in my right side of my brain, cancer in my right shoulder, and lung cancer. Before I started my radiation treatments, I had a heart attack. Janet drove me to Presbyterian Hospital in Greenville, where I spent the night. Next day, I was taken to Baylor and Dallas by ambulance. I had angioplasty. Once this was behind me, I began getting radiation treatments. About 9 treatments later, everything was going well, and we decided to go to the Commerce Christmas Parade. It was cold, and you guessed it, I caught pneumonia, double pneumonia. I don't remember much of anything about the next 3 weeks. I was in Baylor Hospital, ICU. They say I was on life support, being fed through a tube with the central tube going through my thigh. I also had a breathing tube down my throat and all kinds of other tubes running here and there. Meanwhile, among other things, I was being treated with what they call milk of amnesia. I was totally out of it. I have weird memories about being in a basement somewhere in a bed surrounded with televisions broadcasting something about Tom Landry. Never have figured out what that was all about. The doctors announced to my family that they had not been able to cure the pneumonia and my organs were beginning to shut down. They said they didn't expect me to make it, and if I did, I probably would be permanently attached to the breathing tube. My wife and kids were constantly at my side, reading to me and talking to me. They had an apartment close to Baylor where they went when they needed to change clothes and sleep. Just before the doctors decided to give up on me completely, my radiologist, Dr. Barry Wilcock, came by to check on me. He suggested that there was one more treatment to try and to give me 8 more days. They gave me 12. I finally stabilized. All kinds of things happened after that, some of which I remember. Transfusions of platelets, injections of this and that. They removed my breathing tube and put me on oxygen. Christmas Eve, I decided I wanted to go home. They said no. I insisted. The nurse in charge called my doctor and he said only if I had an oxygen cylinder with me. My family tried to find one, but since it was Christmas Eve, everyone was closed. Finally, someone suggested they test to see if I actually needed the oxygen. They removed the oxygen, and an hour later they checked. My blood level oxygen was 98 to 99%. I came home. During the next few months, there were several more hospital stays for more transfusions. During one stay, they found clots in my lungs and leg. They put a filter in my abdomen to stop the clots. I had lost about 35 pounds in all muscle tone. I went from totally bedridden to a wheelchair to a walker and finally to a cane and then to no walking aid at all. Now here I am, 65 years old. I have in my lifetime been very, very busy. I have over the years broken my leg, my wrist, nose, foot, and collarbone. I have been temporarily blind 3 times. I have been bitten by a brown recluse spider, had 2 brain concussions, and 3 heart attacks. Also, 1st and 2nd degree burns on my hands from a gasoline explosion. There has been pneumonia 2 times and 4 cancers. Add to that blood poisoning twice and many, many stitches. The list goes on and on. Right now I am taking chemo for my lung cancer. It seems to be working, but with some very weird side effects. There is no cure for renal cell carcinoma. The chemo simply stops its growth. Normally the chemo works for 6 months and then quits working. I have been on it a lot longer than that, and it seems to be continuing to work. The doctor told us recently that there is now a second drug we could try if the first one becomes ineffective. I have been told by many wonderful people that visited me while I was in the hospital that they felt a divine presence in my room. I don't remember much about that time, but I do remember feeling pulled back into my body and the thought that there was something I had yet to do. There is no doubt in my mind that Jesus kept me here on earth for a reason. There is also no doubt in my mind that the care, patience, and love my wife has shown makes my life that much better. I want to thank my son Greg for pushing me around in my wheelchair, lifting me onto and out of hospital beds and exam tables and in and out of cars and vans. I want to thank my daughter Christy for driving me all over North Texas for MRIs, CT scans, x-rays, doctor's visits, and hospital stays. And finally, I want to thank the people of this church for all they have done for me. The hospital visits, the prayers, and now the greetings, the handshakes and hugs. Also for the help in walking up a rocky path on the side of a hill in the foreign state of Oklahoma. Thank you, and may God bless you all.